This is one of 2 cases in Norfolk County now under federal investigation. And as WBZ's Christina Rex shows us, it's adding to the pressure already facing the district attorney's office.
Situations like this are exactly why I do these videos. You have 2 separate cases with 2 separate agencies, one particular county with 2 different conclusions. And that's just the reality of the situation. So welcome to The Point. Let's get to it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
These videos are not about me being always right. These videos are about ensuring those individuals do get it right. And when law enforcement gets behind the podium or behind a microphone and they speak with so much certainty just to find out something went wrong, people get filled with a lot of anxiety. But our rights matter more than feelings, and we're on a slippery slope here. So if fair coverage and a more open conversation is something you prefer, subscribe to this channel and hit that like button down below. Because all this can't be social media hype or content creators stirring up drama for views. After all, everybody questioning these cases is met with some sort of mainstream narrative quote pertaining to the evidence. They'll make the comments that we're not experts, we don't know what we're talking about, and who are we to question what's going on in the judicial system? Well, the experts have chimed in. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy didn't directly answer when asked whether, in light of the Birchmore and Katen Rear cases, it was rare for federal and state prosecutors to reach different conclusions on investigations. But experts called it unusual for federal authorities to become involved in local investigations, especially twice in the same county. The Sandra Birchmore case, in which former Stoughton detective was arrested Wednesday for allegedly attacking the pregnant woman and staging it as a self-passing, is the second recent high-profile passing investigation that federal prosecutors have stepped in on in one Massachusetts county. Yep, nothing to see here, folks. The people that think this is fine or normal are probably the same type of people who will sit inside of a burning home and try to tell everybody else they're perfectly okay. Now, if you think I'm wrong, please feel free to disagree down in the comment section below, because that's how an open conversation works. The U.S. Attorney's Office for Massachusetts also conducted its own investigation into the highly controversial Katen Rear case, which ended in a mistrial last month. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office alleged that Rear passed her boyfriend, Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe, by hitting him with her SUV. But crash reconstruction experts hired by the federal prosecutors came to a different conclusion, a theory that Rear's lawyers were able to discuss in front of the jury. And let's keep a couple of things in mind here. Number 1, Morrissey's still holding campaign fundraisers to include open bar events, and that's just in poor taste. The number of law enforcement officers who drink and drive in that county openly is concerning. And number 2, the defense was barely able to use that expert testimony. They were barely allowed to have that come in as evidence. And I couldn't have been the only one who thought it was odd. Nobody was allowed to mention who hired these independent third-party experts. And honestly, I wonder why. Let me know your guess down below. And in the Birchmore case, federal prosecutors came to a different conclusion from their counterparts in Norfolk County, at least initially, where investigators said soon afterward that there was no foul play involved in Birchmore's passing. The federal case outlined in court now alleges she was passed by Matthew Farwell, a detective with the Stoughton Police Department. Farwell is accused of attacking her and staging her apartment to make it appear that she passed her own self away. Hats off to the family in this particular story. They kept pushing. They hired their own experts. And to the individual who told me in one of my videos that Dr. Baden's not that good, what are you thinking now? Am I still wrong, or is this just social media hype? Now, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, of course, but it's blatantly obvious they would press charges now. I mean, the FBI has handed them a complete and thorough investigation on a silver platter. I mean, let's be perfectly honest here. How on earth do you miss that many text messages? How on earth do you miss that much evidence? It is as absurd as it is shocking. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy didn't directly answer a question Wednesday about whether, in light of the Birchmore and Rear cases, it was rare for federal and state prosecutors to reach different conclusions on investigations. I'm here to talk about one case, Levy said at a news conference announcing the indictment of Farwell. We have about 1,000 cases in the office. I'm not going to comment on any other case in the office. I would just caution to not extrapolate too much from one out of all the things happening. And we're fair on this channel. I've already said I don't blanket back the blue, and law enforcement catches a lot of crap from me. But we have to give credit where credit is due. Acting U.S. Attorney Levy gave a masterclass on how to conduct a press conference. Think back to every official statement tied to both Katen Rear and Sandra Birchmore. Heck, you can even throw in Brian Kohlberger.
To be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point, because we're not going to release why we think that.
They all spoke with such certainty. They all spoke with so much absolution. We are law enforcement. We are the authorities. And this is the guy. He did this, or she did this, or nothing happened here. But Levy's doing the right thing here. He's speaking as if these are allegations. He's using the word alleged. He's doing what he needs to do to not taint a potential jury pool. So every single law enforcement officer and prosecutor or potential prosecutor needs to look at this press conference and take notes. This is how you do things. You are not certain until the trial. You are not certain until the jury is voted. Do not contaminate your potential jurors by speaking in absolutes. Everything is alleged until proven in a court of law. That applies to everybody. That's just not a best practice. That's a constitutional right. But legal experts agreed that it was unusual for federal authorities to become involved in local investigations, especially twice within the same county. Now I hope all you doubters are hungry, because we're about to get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. It brings up the question, were they investigating Read? Were they investigating Birchmore? Or were they investigating the actions of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and uncover this evidence that supports the indictments they now brought? NBC 10 Boston legal analyst Michael Coyne said. Coyne added that this latest development in the Birchmore case could further erode public trust in law enforcement in Norfolk County, which had already taken a hit after the controversy surrounding the Read case. Now that's the million-dollar question here. Was this probe tied to Birchmore? Was it tied to Read? Or is it tied to the DA's office? I'll give you my guess and you give me yours down in the comments below, but I believe this FBI probe was tied to something within that district attorney's office. That is just my guess. That is just my own personal speculation, but I don't know specifically what it is. But I do know every single citizen in Norfolk should be highly concerned right now. And I would also speculate we're way past the erode point. Don't we need an independent third-party audit of all these individuals tied to these cases, of all these agencies tied to these cases? And if I was an official in that county, I would be publicly stating I want an independent third-party review of everything. And I want that audit to be transparent. I want to restore faith in what we're doing here. I want to rebuild trust. So if somebody would come out and say that, I could almost guarantee you'll start to rebuild some of those bridges that have been torn down. It should be terribly concerning to the people in Stoughton if the allegations are ultimately supported by sufficient evidence. That a number of different law enforcement officers in Stoughton at least contributed to where we're at in this case. Shira Diner, an instructor at the defense clinic at Boston University, called the federal involvement interesting, but did note important differences between the Birchmore and Read cases. In this most recent case, what is at issue is the conduct of the officer very directly, Diner said. In the Katen Rear case, they were more focused on the process and the investigation. Yes, these are two separate cases with two very different issues. We do have some overlap in certain areas, and Farwell may ultimately be found not guilty. Sandra was on medication for depression, and I do imagine that is something his defense team is going to focus on. But make no mistake about it, between these text messages and this video evidence, he has an absolute huge hill to try to climb. And I know people have drawn a line in the sand when talking about both of these cases, because no one wants to think law enforcement is incompetent. Nobody in that area is going to sleep well thinking these individuals placed in charge for their protection have no idea what they're doing. It is a scary thought at the end of the day. But I can assure everybody not every single member of law enforcement is incompetent. But we have to root out these bad actors. We have to get to the bottom of these things because our constitutional rights matter. Our individual freedoms matter, and a simple accusation should not cause anybody to have their entire life ruined. We need better screening into who gets hired and who doesn't. But the comments I just read are from legal experts. These weren't YouTubers, these weren't content creators, and these weren't the comments of anybody on TikTok. So does this change anybody's stance on Katen Rear? Does this change anybody's stance on Sandra Birchmore? There should be nothing wrong with wanting accountability in our judicial system. I do think we have a big groupthink problem when talking about both of these stories. And I think a lot of people are just simply scared. Let me know what you think down below because that's how an open conversation works. Y'all be safe now.